November 15th, 1944, 3:47 a.m., prisoner of war camp 334, somewhere in the forests of eastern Pennsylvania, and the only sound cutting through the pre-dawn darkness was the metallic click of a pump-action shotgun being loaded with a distinctive double thunk that would haunt German memories for decades to come. Obergefreiter Klaus Richter pressed his face against the cold, barbed wire, watching American guards patrol the perimeter with weapons that defied everything the Wehrmacht had taught him about modern warfare. Weapons that seemed primitive and crude, yet somehow terrified even the most battle-hardened veterans of Stalingrad and Normandy in ways that machine guns and artillery never could. The impossible claim had been whispered through the barracks for weeks, like some fever dream born of defeat and desperation. American forces were deploying hunting weapons, civilian shotguns, against the most disciplined military machine in human history, and these crude scatterguns were somehow proving more psychologically devastating than the combined might of Soviet artillery and British bombers. It was a mathematical impossibility, a tactical absurdity that violated every principle of modern combat doctrine. Yet the evidence kept mounting in captured documents, prisoner testimonies, and the hollow-eyed stares of newly arrived POWs who spoke in hushed tones about the terror of facing weapons that belonged in duck blinds and farmhouses rather than battlefields where empires collapsed and continents burned. Hauptmann Friedrich Weber, former artillery commander of the 116th Panzer Division, had laughed when the reports first reached his ears through the camp's informal intelligence network of whispered conversations and smuggled letters. Shotguns, he had sneered to a gathering of officers in Barracks C, his voice carrying the confident dismissal of a man who had orchestrated the destruction of entire Allied tank columns with mathematical precision. The Americans are so desperate they're arming their soldiers with bird-hunting toys. The laughter that followed was bitter and sharp. The sound of men clinging to professional pride even as their armies crumbled and their homeland burned under waves of Allied bombers that darkened European skies like migrating locusts of industrial destruction. But the testimonies kept arriving with each new transport of prisoners. Each convoy of defeated soldiers carrying stories that contradicted everything these career officers understood about warfare and weapon effectiveness. Lieutenant Hans Müller, captured during the Falaise Pocket, described American paratroopers advancing through Norman hedgerows with weapons that fired clouds of lead pellets, turning close-quarter combat into something resembling medieval siege warfare where individual marksmanship became irrelevant and entire sections of German infantry simply ceased to exist in explosions of scattered metal that defied tactical analysis. Sergeant Otto Brenner, taken prisoner during the Battle of the Bulge, spoke of hearing the distinctive pump-action sound echoing through Belgian forests, a mechanical rhythm that became more feared than the whistle of incoming artillery, because it meant the Americans were close enough to see the whites of German eyes before unleashing hell measured not in feet but in inches of devastating effectiveness. The technical specifications seemed impossible when analyzed through the lens of German military engineering, which had spent decades perfecting weapon systems based on accuracy, range, and penetration against hardened targets across vast Eastern European battlefields where engagement distances stretched beyond visual identification. American shotguns operated on completely different principles, designed for hunting birds and small game at ranges measured in tens of yards rather than hundreds, using multiple projectiles instead of single bullets, prioritizing stopping power over penetration, and achieving their effects through principles that violated every assumption about modern infantry combat that had been proven correct from Poland to the gates of Moscow. The mathematics of scattergun effectiveness defied German tactical doctrine in ways that suggested either American desperation or a fundamental misunderstanding of warfare itself. Yet the psychological reports from captured soldiers painted a picture of weapons that had somehow transcended their technical limitations through pure terror multiplication. Where a rifle bullet might wound or kill one man cleanly and efficiently, a shotgun blast could incapacitate multiple targets simultaneously while creating wounds so devastating that even survivors required immediate evacuation, effectively removing entire squads from combat effectiveness through a single trigger pull that scattered destruction across geometric patterns no German officer had been trained to counter or comprehend. Klaus Richter had served as a radio operator with Army Group Center during the retreat from Moscow, had witnessed the collapse of entire divisions under Soviet counterattacks that consumed German formations like wildfire through drought-stricken wheat fields, had seen what modern artillery could do to human bodies when properly concentrated and coordinated by officers who understood the industrial mathematics of destruction. But the American shotgun represented something different, something that operated outside the established parameters of military effectiveness, a weapon that achieved disproportionate results through psychological multiplication rather than technical superiority, turning close-range encounters into nightmares that haunted German soldiers long after the immediate tactical situation had been resolved through conventional means. The camp itself reflected this paradox of American military thinking, surrounded by fences that could be cut with wire cutters, yet patrolled by guards carrying weapons that made escape attempts suicidal, not through superior range or accuracy, but through the simple mathematical certainty that anyone within 30 yards of an American sentry faced instant death delivered through patterns of destruction that eliminated the possibility of tactical maneuvering or individual heroics that had defined German military culture since the days of Frederick the Great. The first documented encounter had been recorded in the personal diary of Lieutenant Ernst Hoffmann, 352nd Infantry Division, captured during the initial hours of D-Day when German beach defenses crumbled under an industrial avalanche of Allied firepower that transformed the Norman coastline into a mechanical hell of steel and explosives. His handwriting, cramped and urgent in the margins of a water-stained field manual, described an American paratroopers emerging from pre-dawn darkness with weapons that made sounds like breaking bones amplified through megaphones. Followed by silence so complete, it seemed to absorb even the distant rumble of naval bombardment that had been pounding German positions since midnight with the mechanical rhythm of factory machinery designed to pulverize concrete and human flesh with equal efficiency. The official Wehrmacht after-action reports, smuggled into the camp through networks of corruption and desperate communication that connected POW facilities across the American heartland like underground railroads of military intelligence, painted an increasingly disturbing picture of tactical encounters that defied every principle of modern warfare taught in German officer schools, where Prussian military traditions had been refined through centuries of European conflict into mathematical certainties about firepower, positioning, and the predictable behavior of enemy forces under stress. Colonel Heinrich Steinberg's report from the 17th SS Panzer Grenadier Division, dated June 12, 1944, contained the clinical language of a professional soldier struggling to describe experiences that existed outside established military vocabulary. Enemy infantry advancing with short-range weapons of unknown type, achieving casualty rates inconsistent with observed technical specifications, recommend immediate tactical revision of close-quarter combat protocols. The mockery had begun in the officer quarters of Stalag 7A, where captured Luftwaffe pilots who had witnessed the destruction of entire German fighter wings by American industrial production still maintained the arrogant confidence of men who had once ruled European skies from Norway to North Africa. Major Wilhelm Kruger, former squadron leader with 43 confirmed kills over Britain and Russia, had dismissed the shotgun reports with the casual contempt of an aerial aristocrat who measured military effectiveness in terms of technological sophistication and engineering precision rather than crude psychological impact. These Americans, he had declared to a gathering of captured airmen, fight like farmers with hunting rifles because they lack the industrial capacity to produce real military weapons. The irony of this statement would become apparent only later, when production statistics began filtering through prisoner exchanges and Red Cross communications that revealed American manufacturing capabilities operating on scales that dwarfed even German wartime industrial mobilization at its peak efficiency. But independent verification came from sources beyond Wehrmacht field reports, including captured American documents that had been translated by German intelligence officers before their own capture and subsequent imprisonment in facilities that reflected American abundance in ways both subtle and overwhelming. Technical Manual TM9285, Operation and Maintenance of Shotguns Military provided specifications that seemed impossible when analyzed through German engineering standards. Weapons manufactured not by precision armaments factories, but by civilian sporting goods companies that had been converted to military production with modification processes so simple they could be implemented by workers with minimal technical training. Producing effective infantry weapons at rates that exceeded German small arms manufacturing, despite utilizing production methods that violated every principle of military-industrial efficiency developed through decades of European warfare. The psychological warfare implications became clear through testimonies collected by Wehrmacht intelligence units before their own destruction during the collapse of Army Group West, when German forces retreated across France under constant pressure from Allied armies that seemed to possess unlimited reserves of men and materials. Gefreiter Max Weber, evacuated from a field hospital near Caen after surviving a close encounter with American airborne forces, described the sound of pump-action shotguns as mechanical thunder that announced death within touching distance. A noise that became more feared than Katyusha rocket barrages because it meant American soldiers were close enough to see individual German faces before delivering destruction measured not in explosive tonnage but in patterns of metal pellets that turned human bodies into abstract art painted in blood across Norman stone walls that had witnessed centuries of warfare but nothing resembling this industrial intimacy of violence. The technical analysis revealed weapons that operated on principles completely alien to German military thinking, which had evolved through Eastern European campaigns where engagement ranges stretched across vast plains and forests, where individual marksmanship determined tactical outcomes through precise application of ballistic science refined by generations of Prussian military engineers. American shotguns achieved their effects through mathematical scatter patterns that made individual accuracy irrelevant, transforming close-range combat from a contest of skill and training into a geometric exercise where multiple projectiles created kill zones measured in square yards rather than precise targeting points, effectively democratizing infantry combat by making every American soldier capable of achieving effects that would require exceptional marksmanship with conventional rifles. Klaus Richter had begun documenting these reports with the methodical precision of a radio operator trained to process information through established military channels, creating an unofficial archive of tactical intelligence that revealed patterns disturbing enough to challenge fundamental assumptions about American military capabilities. The shotgun represented more than just an unconventional weapon choice. It symbolized an approach to warfare that prioritized immediate tactical effectiveness over technical elegance, industrial pragmatism over engineering perfection, and psychological impact over ballistic sophistication, in ways that suggested American military thinking operated according to principles that German officers had never been trained to recognize or counter through conventional tactical responses. The paradox deepened when additional testimonies revealed that American forces were deploying these weapons not as desperate expedients, but as deliberate tactical choices, issued to specific units with established protocols and training programs that treated shotgun warfare as a legitimate military specialization, rather than an improvised solution to equipment shortages. The training manuals discovered in abandoned American positions told a story that defied every assumption about military professionalism and industrial sophistication that had defined German military culture since the unification campaigns of the 1870s. Field Manual FM 2327, Combat Use of Shotguns, contained detailed instructions for tactical employment of scatterguns in urban warfare, trench clearing, and close-quarters combat situations, complete with diagrams showing optimal engagement ranges, ammunition selection criteria, and coordinated assault techniques that treated these hunting weapons as legitimate tools of modern military science rather than desperate improvisations born of industrial inadequacy or tactical confusion among American forces struggling to match German technical superiority with crude numerical advantages. The ammunition specifications revealed the true scope of American industrial commitment to this unconventional warfare approach, with production figures that suggested civilian sporting goods manufacturers had been mobilized on a scale that dwarfed German small arms cartridge production even at peak wartime output levels. Federal Cartridge Corporation alone was producing over 2 million shotgun shells monthly specifically for military consumption, while Winchester Repeating Arms Company had converted 3 entire factory complexes to military scattergun production, with output rates that exceeded the combined rifle manufacturing capacity of all German armaments facilities, operating under Albert Speer's rationalized production system that had been designed to maximize weapons output through scientific management principles refined by decades of Prussian industrial organization. Oberst Franz Müller, former logistics coordinator for the 15th Army during the Normandy campaign, had initially dismissed these production figures as Allied propaganda designed to demoralize German prisoners through exaggerated claims about American manufacturing capabilities. 2 million shells for hunting guns, he had scoffed during a clandestine briefing session in the camp's medical facility, where senior German officers gathered under the pretense of treating chronic ailments that provided cover for intelligence sharing and tactical analysis sessions. The Americans must be truly desperate if they're wasting precious manufacturing capacity on weapons that belong in sporting goods stores rather than military arsenals designed to equip modern armies capable of fighting mechanized warfare across continental distances. But the mathematical reality became undeniable when cross-referenced with captured production statistics from other American industrial sectors. revealing manufacturing capabilities that operated on scales so vast they seemed to violate basic economic principles about resource allocation and industrial efficiency. The Ford Motor Company's Willow Run facility was producing B-24 Liberator bombers at a rate of one aircraft every 63 minutes, while simultaneously manufacturing military vehicles, aircraft engines, and weapons components through assembly line processes that achieved output levels German engineers had calculated to be theoretically impossible, given known limitations of steel production, skilled labor availability, and transportation infrastructure required to support such massive industrial undertakings without compromising quality control or strategic resource management. The psychological impact reports provided by newly arrived prisoners painted an increasingly disturbing picture of weapons that achieved their effects through terror multiplication rather than superior ballistic performance, turning individual combat encounters into nightmares that haunted German survivors long after immediate tactical situations had been resolved through conventional military means. Unterscharführer Kurt Brenner, captured during street fighting in Cherbourg, described American paratroopers advancing through urban rubble with shotguns held at hip level, creating walls of death that made defensive positions untenable regardless of cover quality or tactical positioning, effectively neutralizing German advantages in marksmanship, equipment quality, and tactical training through sheer devastating firepower delivered at ranges where individual skill became irrelevant compared to industrial capacity for producing ammunition measured in tons rather than individual cartridges. The technical specifications revealed weapons that embodied American industrial philosophy in its purest form: simple, reliable, mass-producible, and effective within their designated operational parameters without requiring exceptional maintenance, specialized training, or precision manufacturing techniques that characterized German military equipment designed for optimal performance under ideal conditions. The Winchester Model 1897 trench gun, standard issue for American combat engineers and assault troops, could be manufactured by semi-skilled workers using industrial processes adapted from civilian shotgun production with minimal modification, achieving reliability rates that exceeded German submachine guns while maintaining effectiveness levels that made close-range combat unsurvivable for enemy forces caught within the weapon's operational envelope. The mathematical progression became clear through captured American tactical doctrines that treated shotgun employment as a systematic approach to infantry combat, rather than an improvised solution to specific battlefield problems. Each American rifle company included designated shotgun specialists trained in room-clearing techniques, trench warfare, and urban combat procedures that maximize the weapon's psychological impact through coordinated employment patterns designed to create maximum terror rather than simply achieving tactical objectives through conventional firepower application. Effectively weaponizing fear itself through industrial-scale production of nightmare experiences that broke German morale more effectively than conventional weapons could destroy German bodies. Klaus Richter had begun to understand that the shotgun represented something far more disturbing than an unconventional weapon choice. It symbolized an entirely different approach to warfare that prioritized psychological destruction over physical elimination, industrial pragmatism over technical perfection, and mass production over engineering sophistication, in ways that suggested American military thinking operated according to principles that rendered traditional European military wisdom obsolete through sheer scale of application rather than superior tactical innovation or strategic brilliance. The first comprehensive analysis arrived through Father Maximilian Weiss, a German military chaplain who had been captured during the final hours of the Falaise Pocket and whose access to wounded soldiers from multiple divisions provided intelligence that transcended individual unit experiences to reveal systematic patterns of American tactical doctrine that utilized psychological warfare as a primary combat multiplier rather than a secondary support element. His detailed notes, written in Latin to avoid American censorship, described wounded German soldiers who spoke of shotgun encounters with the trembling voices of men who had witnessed supernatural phenomena rather than conventional military combat. Their testimonies revealing weapons effects that operated through psychological devastation amplified by industrial-scale deployment across entire American divisions equipped with scatter guns as standard infantry weapons, rather than specialized equipment reserved for particular tactical situations. The engineering reports provided even more disturbing evidence of American industrial commitment to this unconventional warfare approach. With captured technical documentation revealing that Remington Arms Company had converted 5 entire manufacturing complexes to military shotgun production using assembly line techniques that achieved output rates exceeding German small arms manufacturing despite utilizing workers with minimal technical training and production methods that emphasized quantity over precision engineering. The Model 11 semi-automatic shotgun, designated Combat Shotgun M11 by American forces, was being produced at rates that exceeded 15,000 units monthly from a single factory complex that had been manufacturing civilian sporting goods just 18 months earlier. Demonstrating American industrial flexibility that allowed rapid conversion between civilian and military production without the extensive retooling processes required by German manufacturing facilities designed for optimal efficiency within narrow operational parameters. Hauptmann Weber's skepticism began to crumble when confronted with ammunition production statistics that revealed American shotgun shell manufacturing operating on scales that dwarfed German artillery shell production even during peak mobilization periods when every available factory had been converted to weapons production under emergency protocols designed to maximize military output regardless of economic costs or resource efficiency. Winchester Western was producing over 8 million shotgun shells monthly specifically for military consumption, while Federal Cartridge Corporation had established dedicated production lines capable of manufacturing specialized military loads including buckshot, flechette rounds, and experimental ammunition types designed to maximize psychological impact through devastating wound patterns that ensured even non-fatal hits would incapacitate enemy soldiers through shock, blood loss, and trauma-induced psychological breakdown that removed entire units from combat effectiveness through individual encounters with weapons that transformed human bodies into abstract expressions of industrial violence. The tactical employment doctrine revealed through captured American training materials demonstrated systematic development of shotgun warfare as a legitimate military specialization with established procedures, specialized training programs, and coordinated deployment strategies that treated these scatter guns as precision instruments for achieving specific battlefield objectives rather than crude expedients employed by forces lacking access to sophisticated military equipment. Technical Manual TM 9285A. Advanced Combat Shotgun Techniques contained detailed instructions for urban warfare, bunker clearing, and trench assault operations that maximized shotgun effectiveness through scientific analysis of engagement ranges, ammunition selection, and tactical coordination that achieved results impossible with conventional rifles or submachine guns operating within their optimal performance parameters. The psychological warfare implications became undeniable when analyzed through reports from German military psychiatrists who had been treating combat stress cases among Wehrmacht personnel evacuated from Western Front positions before their own capture and internment in American facilities that reflected industrial abundance in ways both subtle and overwhelming. Dr. Heinrich Gottfried, former chief psychiatrist for Army Group B, documented systematic patterns of psychological breakdown among German soldiers who had survived close encounters with American shotgun-equipped forces, describing symptoms that resembled shell shock but manifested through different mechanisms related to the intimate nature of scattergun combat where death arrived at conversational distances rather than anonymous artillery ranges that allowed soldiers to maintain psychological distance from the industrial processes that determined their survival or destruction across battlefields measured in continental scales. The mathematical reality of American shotgun deployment revealed industrial commitment that transcended rational resource allocation, suggesting strategic decisions made at policy levels that prioritized psychological warfare effects over conventional tactical efficiency through weapon systems that achieved disproportionate results relative to their technical specifications or manufacturing costs. Each American infantry division included over 2,400 shotguns distributed across rifle companies, combat engineer units, and specialized assault forces trained in close-quarters combat techniques that maximized terror multiplication through coordinated employment patterns designed to break enemy morale before achieving tactical objectives through conventional firepower applications that followed established military doctrine developed through decades of European warfare experience. Klaus Richter's documentation efforts had revealed a systematic American approach to warfare that operated according to principles fundamentally different from German military thinking, utilizing industrial capacity to mass-produce psychological trauma through weapons that achieved their effects through terror rather than superior technical performance, effectively democratizing combat effectiveness by making every American soldier capable of achieving battlefield results that would require exceptional skill or specialized equipment when utilizing conventional weapons systems designed for optimal performance under ideal tactical conditions. It was the mathematics of industrial psychology applied to warfare through weapons that embodied American manufacturing philosophy in its purest form. Simple, reliable, mass-producible, and devastatingly effective within their operational parameters. The turning point came during the third week of December 1944, when Sergeant Carl Thompson of the 101st Airborne Division arrived at the prison camp as part of a routine guard rotation, carrying a Winchester Model 1897 trench gun with the casual familiarity of a farmer shouldering a hunting rifle. Completely unaware that his presence would trigger a psychological cascade among German prisoners who recognized the distinctive profile of the weapon that had haunted their nightmares since the first encounters in Norman hedgerows, where American paratroopers had transformed close-quarters combat into systematic terror campaigns conducted with industrial precision and mechanical efficiency. The shotgun itself seemed almost primitive compared to the sophisticated German weapons systems these prisoners had operated during their service, with mechanized divisions equipped with the most advanced military technology available to any army in human history. Yet its presence created an atmosphere of tension so palpable it could be measured through changes in prisoner behavior patterns recorded by camp administrators who documented decreased appetite, increased insomnia, and spontaneous episodes of combat stress reactions triggered by the distinctive sound of pump-action cycling that echoed across the compound during routine guard duties. Thompson had participated in the initial assault on Burcourt Manor during D-Day operations, where his squad had eliminated an entire German artillery battery using tactics that violated every principle of conventional infantry assault doctrine taught in American military schools that emphasized firepower coordination, tactical positioning, and systematic destruction of enemy positions through combined arms operations conducted at ranges that minimized friendly casualties while maximizing enemy losses through superior technology and tactical coordination. Instead, American paratroopers had advanced through pre-dawn darkness with shotguns loaded with double-aught buckshot, closing to within 20 yards of German defensive positions before unleashing coordinated volleys that transformed entrenched artillery crews into scattered remains that bore no resemblance to human forms. Achieving tactical objectives through sheer terror, multiplication rather than superior firepower, or tactical brilliance that characterized successful military operations throughout European military history, the assault had begun at 0445 hours with Thompson's squad advancing through morning fog that provided concealment from German observation posts but also limited visibility to ranges where individual marksmanship became irrelevant compared to the devastating area effects achieved through coordinated shotgun employment that created kill zones measured in square yards rather than precise targeting points. Lieutenant Richard Winters had coordinated the attack through hand signals rather than radio communication, maintaining tactical surprise until American forces were close enough to see individual German faces before initiating contact through simultaneous shotgun volleys that eliminated enemy resistance through psychological shock, amplified by physical destruction so complete it defied tactical analysis through conventional military assessment methods developed for evaluating combat effectiveness based on casualty ratios, ammunition expenditure, and time required to achieve tactical objectives. The German artillery position had been defended by veteran gunners from the 6th Parachute Regiment, elite troops with extensive combat experience across multiple theaters who had survived encounters with Soviet artillery barrages, British bombing campaigns, and American mechanized assaults conducted according to established military doctrine that emphasized firepower superiority and tactical coordination, rather than close-quarters combat that eliminated tactical advantages through intimate violence delivered at ranges where individual courage and technical training became irrelevant compared to industrial capacity for producing ammunition, designed to maximize psychological trauma through devastating wound patterns that transformed human bodies into abstract expressions of American manufacturing capabilities. These experienced soldiers had maintained their positions under conventional artillery bombardment that had continued throughout the night, demonstrating the professional discipline and tactical competence that characterized German military performance even during the final phases of a war that had already been decided through industrial mathematics rather than tactical brilliance or individual heroism. But the shotgun assault had achieved complete tactical success within 4 minutes of initial contact, eliminating organized resistance through weapons effects that operated outside established parameters of military effectiveness, measured through conventional criteria developed for analyzing infantry combat conducted at ranges where individual skill and tactical positioning determined battlefield outcomes. Thompson's first shot had eliminated 3 German soldiers simultaneously, the spread pattern of double-aught buckshot creating wounds so devastating that even immediate medical attention could not have prevented fatal outcomes. While the psychological impact on surviving defenders was so severe that organized resistance collapsed before American forces could exploit their initial tactical advantage through conventional infantry assault procedures that required systematic destruction of enemy positions through coordinated firepower and tactical maneuvering designed to minimize friendly casualties while achieving strategic objectives. The remaining German defenders had abandoned their positions without firing a single shot in response. Fleeing through morning darkness with the panic-stricken desperation of men who had witnessed supernatural phenomena rather than conventional military combat, leaving behind artillery pieces worth millions of Reich marks and ammunition stockpiles that could have supported defensive operations for weeks if properly employed by competent gunners operating under effective tactical leadership. The psychological collapse had been so complete that subsequent American forces found German weapons still loaded and ready for action, defensive positions properly constructed and tactically sound, and ammunition supplies sufficient for sustained combat operations. Yet abandoned by veteran soldiers whose military training and combat experience had been rendered useless by weapons that achieved their effects through terror multiplication rather than superior tactical performance or technical sophistication. It was the mathematics of industrial psychology applied through weapons that embodied American manufacturing philosophy, devastating effectiveness achieved through simple mechanical principles, multiplied by mass production capabilities that could equip entire armies with scatterguns manufactured by civilian sporting goods companies, operating according to industrial processes that prioritized quantity over precision engineering while achieving battlefield results that exceeded sophisticated weapon systems designed by German engineers who had spent decades perfecting military technology through scientific analysis and mathematical optimization. The statistical avalanche began with ammunition production figures that defied rational analysis when measured against German industrial capabilities operating at maximum wartime efficiency under Albert Speer's rationalized management system, designed to extract optimal military output from available resources through scientific organization and systematic elimination of production inefficiencies. Winchester Western manufactured 847,293 shotgun shells daily across 17 production facilities that had been converted from civilian sporting goods manufacturing to military ammunition production in less than 8 months, achieving output rates that exceeded total German small arms cartridge production from all Reichswerke facilities combined, despite utilizing workers with minimal technical training and production methods that emphasize speed over precision engineering through assembly line processes adapted from automobile manufacturing techniques pioneered by Henry Ford's revolutionary approach to industrial organization. Federal Cartridge Corporation produced 247,856 military shotgun shells weekly from facilities that operated 24 hours daily with 3 complete shift rotations, consuming 847 tons of lead shot monthly while maintaining quality control standards that achieved less than 0.3% defect rates through automated inspection processes that eliminated human error factors without requiring the skilled technicians essential for German ammunition manufacturing that relied on precision craftsmanship and individual expertise to maintain product reliability under combat conditions. Remington Arms Company manufactured 34,582 combat shotguns monthly from production lines that could be reconfigured for different weapon variants within 48 hours, demonstrating industrial flexibility that allowed rapid response to changing tactical requirements without the extensive retooling processes required by German weapons manufacturing facilities designed for optimal efficiency within narrow operational parameters that precluded rapid adaptation to evolving battlefield conditions. The raw material consumption revealed American industrial capacity operating on scales that suggested unlimited access to strategic resources that Germany had been forced to ration through increasingly desperate conservation measures implemented during the final years of a war that had already been decided through mathematical inevitability rather than tactical brilliance or strategic innovation. American shotgun manufacturing consumed 847,293 pounds of steel monthly for barrel production alone, while German small arms manufacturing for all weapon types utilized less than 500,000 pounds of steel monthly, despite operating under emergency production protocols that prioritize military manufacturing over civilian needs through resource allocation decisions that reflected strategic desperation rather than industrial abundance. Lead consumption for shotgun ammunition exceeded 2,400 tons monthly, representing more lead than Germany could allocate for all military applications combined, despite controlling mining operations across occupied Europe that had been systematically exploited through slave labor programs designed to maximize resource extraction, regardless of human costs or long-term economic sustainability. The transportation statistics revealed logistical capabilities that supported ammunition distribution on continental scales through railroad networks and trucking systems that delivered shotgun shells to forward combat units with mechanical precision that eliminated supply bottlenecks even during periods of maximum tactical intensity when conventional ammunition supplies became critical factors in determining battlefield outcomes. The Pennsylvania Railroad allocated 47 freight trains daily specifically for military ammunition transport, while the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad operated dedicated ammunition trains that delivered 2,400 tons of shotgun shells weekly to staging areas along the Atlantic coast, where supplies were consolidated for shipment to European theater operations, through convoy systems that maintained regular delivery schedules despite submarine warfare that had been designed to sever American supply lines, through systematic destruction of merchant shipping capacity. Production facility statistics demonstrated American industrial mobilization that transcended rational resource allocation through manufacturing capabilities that seemed to violate basic economic principles about industrial capacity limitations and skilled labor requirements for military production at wartime scales. The Winchester Repeating Arms Company operated 847 production machines simultaneously across multiple facility complexes, maintaining 98.7% operational efficiency through preventive maintenance programs that eliminated equipment failures without requiring the specialized technicians essential for German manufacturing operations that relied on individual expertise and craft knowledge to maintain production continuity under increasingly difficult resource constraints. Employee statistics revealed 34,582 workers engaged in military shotgun production alone, representing more personnel than Germany could allocate for all small arms manufacturing, despite mobilizing civilian populations through compulsory labor programs that prioritized military production over economic sustainability or social welfare considerations. The ammunition specification diversity reflected American industrial sophistication that achieved tactical flexibility through manufacturing processes capable of producing specialized loads tailored for specific combat applications without disrupting production schedules or requiring extensive facility modifications. Standard buckshot loads utilized 9.33 caliber lead pellets arranged in precise patterns that created kill zones measuring 6.5 feet in diameter at optimal engagement ranges, while specialized flechette rounds contained 24 steel darts designed to penetrate body armor and maintain lethal velocity through multiple targets, effectively multiplying individual weapon effectiveness through ammunition design that maximized battlefield impact per trigger pull. Armor-piercing loads incorporated tungsten core projectiles capable of penetrating 2 inches of hardened steel at ranges up to 40 yards, transforming civilian hunting weapons into anti-armor systems that could eliminate German tank crews through vision ports and ventilation systems that had been designed to provide protection against conventional small arms fire rather than specialized ammunition types manufactured specifically for defeating armored targets. Quality control statistics revealed American manufacturing precision that achieved military reliability standards through industrial processes that operated according to scientific management principles developed through decades of civilian production experience applied to military requirements without compromising efficiency or increasing production costs beyond acceptable parameters. Defect rates averaged 0.27% across all ammunition types despite production volumes that exceeded German manufacturing capacity by factors that seemed mathematically impossible given known limitations of industrial organization and resource availability that had been calculated through comprehensive analysis of global manufacturing capabilities conducted by German economic planners, who had designed wartime production systems based on realistic assessments of achievable output levels under optimal conditions. It was the mathematics of industrial supremacy, expressed through ammunition production, that revealed American manufacturing capabilities operating on scales that dwarfed German industrial capacity even at peak wartime mobilization levels achieved through total economic conversion and systematic exploitation of occupied territories designed to maximize resource extraction through organized application of slave labor and confiscated materials obtained through military conquest rather than voluntary economic cooperation or mutually beneficial trade relationships. The moment of absolute realization came when Obergefreiter Hans Dietrich, former supply sergeant with the 12th SS Panzer Division, witnessed an American guard casually discarding a box of perfectly serviceable shotgun shells because the cardboard packaging had become slightly damp during routine storage in the camp's ammunition depot. An act of waste so profound, it challenged every assumption about resource scarcity and conservation discipline that had governed German military logistics throughout a war fought under conditions of increasing material shortage, where individual cartridges were accounted for through bureaucratic systems that tracked ammunition expenditure down to single rounds fired in combat operations. The discarded shells contained enough lead and gunpowder to supply a German infantry squad for an entire week of combat operations. Yet the American Guard treated them as industrial refuse worthy only of disposal in waste containers that would be hauled away by civilian contractors who operated garbage collection services with the same mechanical efficiency that characterized American military logistics, operating according to abundance principles that rendered traditional conservation measures obsolete through sheer scale of production capacity. Dietrich had managed Wehrmacht ammunition supplies during the final retreat across France, when German forces were reduced to rationing rifle cartridges at 5 rounds per man per day, while American units engaged in firefights that consumed thousands of rounds without apparent concern for ammunition, conservation, or supply line vulnerabilities that had plagued German operations since the failure of Operation Barbarossa had revealed the mathematical impossibility of sustaining mechanized warfare across continental distances without industrial production capabilities that could replace consumed materials faster than combat operations could expend available stockpiles through systematic destruction of enemy forces and equipment. He had witnessed German soldiers searching battlefields for expended American brass cartridges that could be reloaded with gunpowder salvaged from defective artillery shells, while American forces left behind ammunition dumps containing more small arms cartridges than entire German divisions had fired during months of combat operations conducted under emergency supply protocols designed to maximize tactical effectiveness while minimizing resource consumption through strict ammunition discipline and target selection procedures. The psychological collapse began when Dietrich calculated the economic value of the discarded ammunition, using exchange rates that reflected real purchasing power rather than official currency conversions distorted by wartime economic controls and artificial price mechanisms designed to conceal the true costs of military production from populations already suffering under rationing systems that allocated basic necessities according to political priorities rather than economic efficiency or humanitarian considerations. The discarded shotgun shells represented enough raw materials to purchase food supplies capable of sustaining a German family for 2 months under peacetime conditions. Yet they had been thrown away with the casual indifference of a nation that possessed manufacturing capabilities so vast that individual ammunition conservation became economically irrelevant compared to the administrative costs required for implementing supply discipline procedures that had been essential for German military operations throughout a war fought under conditions of systematic resource shortage. The revelation expanded when other German prisoners began documenting similar examples of American abundance that defied rational economic analysis through systematic waste practices that would have been considered criminal sabotage if implemented within German military logistics systems designed to extract maximum tactical value from limited material resources through conservation disciplines that had been refined through centuries of European warfare conducted under conditions where individual cartridges could determine tactical outcomes and ammunition shortages represented strategic vulnerabilities that could be exploited by enemies possessing superior supply capabilities. Lieutenant Weber observed American guards using shotgun ammunition for recreational target practice during off-duty hours, expending more ammunition in a single afternoon of casual shooting than his former artillery battery had been allocated for an entire month of combat operations, while maintaining supply stockpiles that seemed to increase rather than decrease despite continuous consumption rates that would have exhausted German ammunition reserves within days of implementation. The mathematical impossibility became undeniable when prisoners calculated American ammunition production rates against consumption patterns observed within the camp environment, revealing manufacturing capabilities that produced military supplies faster than military operations could consume available stockpiles even during periods of maximum tactical intensity when conventional supply systems would have been strained beyond operational capacity through sustained combat operations conducted across multiple theater commands that required simultaneous ammunition distribution to forces operating under different tactical conditions and facing varying enemy capabilities. American shotgun ammunition production exceeded 15,000 rounds monthly from civilian sporting goods manufacturers alone. While German intelligence estimates suggested total American ammunition consumption for all weapon types rarely exceeded 8,000 rounds monthly, despite conducting military operations across global theater commands that extended from the Aleutian Islands to the Italian peninsula through supply lines that spanned oceanic distances requiring maritime transportation systems vulnerable to submarine warfare designed to sever enemy logistics capabilities. The abundance extended beyond ammunition to encompass every aspect of American military logistics that German prisoners could observe through daily interactions with camp personnel who demonstrated casual attitudes toward material consumption that reflected industrial capabilities operating on scales that seemed to violate basic economic principles about resource limitations and production capacity constraints that had governed European military planning since the beginning of recorded warfare. American guards replaced functional equipment based on maintenance schedules rather than actual wear patterns, discarded clothing items that contained only minor defects, and consumed food quantities that exceeded German military rations by factors that suggested unlimited agricultural production capabilities, supported by transportation systems that could deliver fresh supplies to remote locations without disrupting civilian food distribution networks that had been essential for maintaining home front morale during extended military campaigns. The psychological impact on German prisoners transcended individual observations to encompass worldview collapse among men who had been trained to measure military effectiveness through resource efficiency and tactical economy that maximized battlefield results while minimizing material consumption through conservation disciplines that had been considered essential military virtues throughout Prussian military tradition dating back to Frederick the Great's campaigns conducted under conditions where individual equipment items represented significant economic investments that could determine strategic outcomes through proper utilization or tactical failure through careless waste. It was the mathematics of abundance that revealed American industrial capabilities operating according to principles that rendered traditional European concepts of military logistics obsolete through sheer scale of production capacity that could support global military operations while maintaining civilian living standards that exceeded European peacetime levels despite simultaneous engagement in the largest military conflict in human history. The final understanding crystallized during the last days of January 1945, when news of Germany's inevitable defeat filtered through camp communication systems that connected prisoner facilities across the American heartland, like neural networks transmitting tactical intelligence about a war that had already been decided through industrial mathematics, rather than battlefield heroics or strategic brilliance developed by military commanders who had been trained to measure victory through territorial conquest and enemy casualties, rather than production capacity and resource mobilization that determined long-term strategic outcomes across continental theaters of operation. Klaus Richter stood once again at the barbed wire perimeter, watching American guards patrol with shotguns that had become symbols of industrial inevitability rather than primitive weapons employed by forces lacking access to sophisticated military technology. Understanding finally that German defeat had been mathematically certain from the moment American civilian sporting goods manufacturers had been converted to military production through industrial processes that could equip entire armies with weapons, manufactured by workers who had never received formal military training or specialized technical education. The tactical revolution had been achieved not through superior strategy or innovative battlefield doctrine, but through systematic application of American industrial philosophy that prioritized effectiveness over elegance, reliability over sophistication, and mass production over precision engineering in ways that democratized military capability by making every American soldier capable of achieving battlefield results that would require exceptional skill or specialized equipment when utilizing weapon systems designed according to European military traditions that emphasized individual craftsmanship and technical perfection over industrial efficiency and manufacturing scalability. The shotgun represented the complete inversion of German military thinking, which had spent decades developing sophisticated weapon systems that required extensive training, precise maintenance, and specialized ammunition manufactured through complex industrial processes that could be disrupted by strategic bombing campaigns or resource shortages that made sustained production impossible under wartime conditions when raw materials became critical strategic assets determining military capabilities more directly than tactical innovation or operational planning. German military doctrine had been predicated on achieving decisive tactical advantages through superior technology and individual excellence that could compensate for numerical disadvantages through qualitative superiority in equipment, training, and battlefield performance measured through conventional military criteria developed for evaluating combat effectiveness based on casualty ratios, territorial gains, and strategic objectives achieved through systematic application of proven tactical principles refined through centuries of European warfare experience. But American forces had achieved strategic victory through industrial overwhelm that rendered tactical excellence irrelevant by deploying weapons in quantities so vast that individual performance became statistically insignificant compared to collective firepower delivered through mass-produced systems that achieved their effects through sheer volume rather than technical sophistication or tactical brilliance that characterized traditional military effectiveness. The psychological warfare implications had extended far beyond individual battlefield encounters to encompass systematic destruction of German military morale through encounters with American abundance that revealed the mathematical impossibility of achieving strategic victory against an enemy possessing unlimited manufacturing capacity and resource availability that could sustain military operations at levels that exceeded German production capabilities even when operating under optimal conditions. With full access to occupied European industrial facilities and forced labor programs designed to maximize weapons output, regardless of economic costs or humanitarian considerations that had been subordinated to military necessity through emergency protocols that prioritized immediate tactical requirements over long-term strategic sustainability. The shotgun had become the perfect metaphor for American military capability: simple, reliable, devastatingly effective within operational parameters, and manufactured in quantities that defied rational economic analysis through industrial processes that could be rapidly scaled to meet changing tactical requirements without disrupting civilian production or requiring extensive facility modifications that characterized German weapons manufacturing, designed for optimal efficiency, within narrow operational specifications that precluded rapid adaptation to evolving battlefield conditions, or changing strategic requirements imposed by global warfare conducted across multiple theater commands, requiring diverse equipment capabilities and tactical flexibility that traditional European military industry had never been designed to provide through conventional manufacturing approaches. The final irony revealed itself through post-war intelligence reports that would later document the complete scope of American industrial mobilization, revealing production capabilities that had operated far below maximum capacity even during peak wartime production periods when civilian manufacturing had been partially converted to military applications through voluntary cooperation, rather than total economic conversion implemented through authoritarian control systems that had characterized German wartime production, but had ultimately proven insufficient for sustaining global military operations against enemies possessing superior industrial capabilities and unlimited resource access through voluntary economic cooperation among democratic nations that could coordinate production efforts without destroying civilian living standards or social cohesion, essential for long-term strategic sustainability. Not tactics, but the industrial inevitability of American abundance had determined the war's outcome through mathematical certainties that rendered battlefield performance irrelevant compared to manufacturing capacity that could produce military equipment faster than combat operations, could consume available stockpiles while maintaining civilian prosperity that exceeded European peacetime standards despite simultaneous engagement in global warfare requiring resource commitments that would have bankrupted traditional European economies operating according to conventional economic principles, developed for managing limited resources through conservative allocation policies designed to prevent economic collapse during extended military campaigns that required sustained material production over periods, measured in years rather than months of tactical operations. And in the pre-dawn darkness of another Pennsylvania morning, that same metallic double thunk of a pump-action shotgun being loaded echoed across the compound. No longer the sound of primitive weapons, but the mechanical rhythm of industrial supremacy made manifest through weapons that had transformed warfare itself into an expression of manufacturing capability rather than military artistry, leaving German prisoners to contemplate the mathematical certainty of their defeat through abundance so overwhelming it had rendered individual courage, tactical skill, and strategic brilliance obsolete through sheer scale of production that could equip civilian hunters with weapons capable of terrorizing the most disciplined military forces in human history.